Fearscape Media Network, exploring the unknown, one podcast at a time.
Hi, friends. This is Kelly with Wishful Drinking and Binge Thinking, the podcast where I get just absolutely hammered and I dole out psychological advice. That's right, I am going to be more drunk than that girl you met in the bar bathroom after your karaoke set who said, "You have such good stage presence. Oh my god." That's right, zero preparation, multiple drinks, countless profound gems. Tune in the last Monday of every month on Fearscape Media Network.
Ghosts in the Attics, Bodies in the Basements may contain graphic, violent, vulgar, or explicit content not suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Ghosts in the Attics, Bodies in the Basement. I'm Anna.
And I'm Lindsey. Come on in.
All right. Well, since we last were on, we had a new episode drop, and I think it was pretty special. We had Melanie Golding on the show, and if you haven't had a chance to read her books or listen to that episode, please go do so now. What are you waiting for? Seriously.
Yes, it was absolutely awesome. She's fantastic as a person, and it was so cool to have her on, and the books are amazing as well. So all around, go read the books and then go listen to our episodes, especially the one that she's on.
Oh, yeah. I think you would enjoy it. Honestly, I mean, her books cover true crime and paranormal, and I mean, that's what you're here for. So
I actually recommended, or I guess not recommended, but I started texting with, there's an app called Peanut, and it's like Tinder, but for mom friends.
Yep.
And I connected with like a lady, and we were texting a lot, and we brought up books and everything, and I brought up Melanie Golding's books, and I was like, they're like the perfect blend of crime, but then folklore and fantasy, and like it's really awesome. So maybe she'll go read them.
Yeah, I mean, hey, anybody that can go check out some books that we're like absolutely thrilled about, I'm in for. And if you want to discuss, please do, because we would love to have a discussion with you about your thoughts on the book, or books, I should say.
Yes, they're both fantastic. I think I might like The Hidden a little bit more than Little Darlings.
I agree, but it's just because I have the backstory from Little Darlings to make it that much better.
True. And I was going to say, I think some of it is that with Little Darlings, there's just that constant frustration of nobody believing Lauren.
Yes.
Whereas The Hidden feels more like a race against time type of thriller, if that makes sense. So it's different types of tension build up.
It's really good. So if you missed our Facebook Live the other day, where were you? We missed you.
God,
how
going to be here for us?
How dare you be busy? But we introduced a new series that we're going to be doing, and it's called Fucked Up and Frightful. And
we'll probably call it a billion different things because
we'll probably forget what we called it, but I have it wrote on a Post-it note on the jar with all of the things put in the jar, like every state, every country that follows us, like all in the jar. And what we're asking you to do, listeners, is give us suggestions of places or countries, states, whatever, places within those countries and states for us to put in the jar so we can, let fate decide what we cover.
And you can be as vague as cover Australia, or as specific of cover this specific location in this city, in this state, country, whatever.
Yeah.
and we'll throw it in the jar. And like, if you give us a place in, say, like Maine, and we draw Maine out of the jar, and you're the only person that suggested something in Maine, that's what we're going to cover.
Absolutely. And we're going to have like a whole Excel sheet to go along with that so we don't get lost, or a note app on one of our phones, something,
Yeah,
so we
have to write
have
things down or we'll forget it all.
we'll forget everything. So yay,
There's me not even
neurodivergency.
remembering the name of this series. I labeled it, the audio and my notes, everything, just F and F, because I remembered it was 2 Fs. I could not remember what words we chose.
It's fucked up because of the murders, and it's frightful because of I think it's true, but the hauntings, I have to believe that's true.
Of a word that encompassed all things paranormal, whether it's hauntings, aliens, cryptids, whatever. And so we had to find a word that, because I think we were originally going to do fucked up and haunted or something like that. And then we're like, but then it like puts us in a box of just talking about ghosts, and we don't want to just talk about ghosts.
We want to talk about all the things. So I currently have a vase with tons of Post-it notes folded up with all the states and all the countries that currently follow us on there. And I'm pretty excited because it gives us a chance to really hone in on it gives us a way to fucking focus. Let's be real. And
there's just Googling.
There's so many options. Yeah. We ended up picking Missouri for our first choice.
There's a lot of choices for Missouri. Let me just point that out. I did not know.
Well, I actually stumbled across mine. Have you heard about this show on Hulu called The Thing About Pam? It has Renee Zellweger in a fat suit, which is like a whole tangent in itself that I will not get on because that will take up the entire episode.
I mostly have heard about it from you, and I have not had a chance to start watching it yet.
Okay, well, it is delightfully fucked up. I say delightfully fucked up because what happens is fucked up, but the delightful part to me is, have you ever seen Desperate Housewives?
I mean, a few episodes, yeah.
You know how they do the narration to explain what's going to happen? They do that in The Thing About Pam, and I love that. It's this one male narrator, and he has like this very like soothing voice, and he's telling you what is going to be happening to an extent, and then it leads into the scene, and it's just so perfect. And I love that about the show. I thought that was really well done. The fat suit on Renee Zellweger, no, they could have found literally any blonde actress who happened to be plus size and talented to play this woman. But like I said, that's a tangent I will not get on because it's not nice. Overall, I did enjoy the show. I binge watched it within like 2 or 3 evenings because me and my husband were both kind of like sucked into it. So I'm going to be I will be covering Pamela Hupp today. And yeah. So I don't know what you're covering, but that's how I found my story, was a Hulu docuseries.
All right. So after we pulled Missouri, I'm Googling like Missouri hauntings, like cryptids, and there's a lot of things in Missouri that I never would have known, because I have driven through there a few times, but I've never like been to. I've only driven through in passing. First of all, y'all got cryptids. We've got the Ozarks Howler, which is not what I'm covering, but I was just like, what the fuck? And lots of hauntings. And so picking one was difficult. I ended up kind of just picking one because I could have spent forever deep diving into all of them, and it would have gotten us nowhere, and I would have been overwhelmed. And so I ended up picking a trail, actually, called Zombie Road.
Ooh, okay.
And it's got like a pretty interesting backstory there.
I like the name of that. Yeah. So I don't remember who went first last time. Do you happen to remember?
I think it's been a while since we've had just a normal episode.
I know. We've had the birthday episode, and then we had Melanie, and then we had Gone Girl.
I think we had an episode in between birthday and Melanie, and I don't even remember what we covered.
Oh, yeah. It was the April Fool's episode.
Oh, so yeah. So see, that was like a holiday themed episode.
Yeah. So we haven't
done one in a while.
It's been a while since we gave you true content. We're so sorry. Well, I'm really interested to hear about this zombie thing. So tell me.
All right. So Oh, just another thing that I forgot to mention before I had picked one. I almost covered. Did you know that Missouri is where the real exorcism that inspired The Exorcist took place?
I did not know that. That's wild.
And so I thought about covering that because like that's pretty big. But then the more I thought about it, like it's a pretty complex issue when you get into exorcisms on is there even actually a possession or are we just abusing a child?
Or was there a medical thing that they weren't aware of because of the time frame?
And so then therefore they were being tortured, neglected, whatever, instead of getting the help they needed.
Right.
And so I was like, I'm not even going to open the can of worms. I didn't even look into it. So I was like, that is probably going to be a bigger topic that would need like.
But now we know for the list.
Exactly. And so instead of it just being like we're talking about the state, I figured that'd probably be like a little bit bigger one where we could go into the problems of exorcisms.
Right. We can make a whole dedicated episode to that.
Yeah. Because as much as I believe in supernatural things, I do not believe that every exorcism is a legitimate
warranted
thing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that felt like too heavy of a topic for like a fun little new series. And so yeah, like I said, I just kind of picked one at random and it was Zombie Road. So Zombie Road is actually called a couple of different things, and one of which seemed most referenced was Lawler Ford Road. And it's approximately a 2-mile road that's like primarily just for bikes and hiking. Like cars can't go on it anymore. And it's located in Wildwood, Missouri. It is considered one of the most haunted places in Missouri and one of the most haunted roads in the world, at least according to my source link, which is in the show notes.
Oh, nice.
Let me start off by saying that I did my research for this at night. And when I was growing up, I was always terrified going down like old country roads at night.
Right.
Because like my mom's side of the family is in southeastern Kentucky. And so the number of times like so it's like a bunch of like country, like windy roads, like woods on both sides of the road. I was always so scared to look out the window. I was afraid I was going to see like a ghost or something.
Yeah.
And so even just doing the research for this was like bringing up that old fear. And apparently, I guess if they had lived in this part of Missouri, maybe I would have actually seen something. I don't know. And so like it just kind of brought up that like same eerie feeling. I'm sitting there in my kitchen with the lights on, but feeling like I'm in a car on a dark stretch of road.
Damn.
But that's just a side note. So Zombie Road is also called Al Foster Trail. Like I said, it had a couple different names, probably because it's been around for so long. And the area is allegedly located at one of the largest indigenous people burial grounds. And just a side note, listeners, I have no way of knowing how to fact check that. Because like everything's always on an ancient burial ground and like causes hauntings. But this is also all stolen land. So maybe there is actually a burial ground, or maybe it's just rumored, a stereotype to hype up the urban legendness of it.
Right.
So if anybody knows how to fact check shit like that, I'd appreciate it to know. Because as I wrote it in my notes, because that's what it said on the sources, on multiple sources. But I'm like, is it really? Or is it like, oh, look how creepy it is. It's an ancient burial ground.
Right.
You know? So forgive me if that was ignorant. So allegedly, it's like one of the biggest ones in the nation, though. And the road was initially created to allow access to the Merrimack River, as well as the railroad tracks that ran along the river back in the 1860s. It was also allegedly used by soldiers in the Civil War. It did not go into more details on what they used it for, if it was literally just for passage or what. But it actually became known as Zombie Road as early as the 1950s, when at that point the road had been run down and not really used anymore. And so it was the local hangout place for teens to go drink and party and make out. You know, the start of every horror movie and urban legend ever.
Right.
And so the name Zombie Road comes from what I can only assume must be an urban legend.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like there's any actual facts to back it up. But allegedly, the legend says that there was a story of the zombie killer. And the zombie killer was a creepy man who lived in a shack in the woods who would come out and attack the young lovers looking to be alone.
That sounds lovely.
like, and it also sounds like every urban legend ever. Although there was a Texarkana guy who is believed to be the Zodiac. I believe it was the Zodiac.
Yeah.
So there is truth behind those stories, but it didn't seem like there was necessarily truth about that particular one for this particular location. Because, like I said, it's like every urban legend ever.
Yeah.
And I thought the name Zombie Road came from the fact that they say, like, there's a lot of shadow figures. Like, you can be going down the stretch of road and there's just shadow figures all along.
Right.
And now I'm picturing, like, it's looking like a zombie apocalypse, all the zombies coming after you.
That would be terrifying.
Right. Even just shadow people staring at you. No, don't like it. Don't like it at all. But as the years went on, more stories came out about the creepy trail. And it's said to be haunted by a variety of spirits, from the indigenous people from the burial ground to Civil War soldiers to packs of child ghosts. Literally, the website said packs of child ghosts. And
So,
why are they in packs?
Black-eyed kids, maybe.
Maybe. Or, like, if we're going to go with the urban legend stereotype, there's an orphanage in those woods or something.
Or a school bus fell off a bridge, or you never know.
Right, yeah, like trick-or-treat style.
Yes.
Like, I don't know. I did not like that it said packs of children, because we know how creepy and terrifying children ghosts are. Or even just children in general.
Yes.
And that's coming from mothers.
Right.
So,
I seen a TikTok where this lady, I think you sent it to me, Linz, where this lady was like asleep and she kept hearing her door open and close.
Oh,
and
yeah.
This kid was like her kid, but this kid was staring over
which
her.
Is our kids' ages. Our
youngest, or well, my youngest, but
my middle. Yeah.
Her middle. And it was like, the man in your closet doesn't like you.
He's waiting for you to fall asleep with like bug-eyed stare,
something like
night.
that, and it was like horrific. And she was like, I was holding a Bible and a bat. Like,
oh my gosh! I made my dog get out of the bed first in case there was something under my bed.
Oh my gosh! If we can find that TikTok, we'll have to link it in the show notes because it was hilarious.
Yeah, I'm sure it's in our inbox. We send each other a lot of videos.
Yes,
but that was hysterical. But also, I can feel her fear.
Yeah.
Oh man. It sounds like something our 8-year-olds would do, for sure.
Man, my son dresses up in his Halloween costume, which was a skeleton suit, and he puts on this scary fucking mask, and he has like a staff that looks like bones with the skull head on top. Like, he's weird. I love him, but we have this, what I call pride rock, in my front yard. It's these rocks that looks like something Simba would stand on, and he gets out there and just stands on it and stares and leers at the drivers going down the road. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? He goes, trying to scare people, obviously. I was like, I can't with you.
That reminds me, a few weeks ago, I was sitting in my room. I think it was night, because all the lights like out of the room were off.
Right.
But I had my bedroom door open for some reason. Because I think maybe like the older kids weren't in bed yet, because it was a weekend. And I'm just sitting there listening to music, hanging out after like, I think I had taken a shower and I was like getting ready to go to bed soon. And I'm sitting there minding my own business, and suddenly I look up and my 8-year-old's just peeking around the corner in the dark. Peeking around the corner into my room. And I for real was like, oh my God. And she just laughed and like walked off. That's all she wanted, was to scare me.
Lord. Yeah, Landon's favorite thing to do is scare people. And it's just like, I love it, but also you need to calm down.
Yes. So yes, packs of child ghosts, apparently. I don't know what it means. I don't want to know what it means. It makes me feel a little bit sick. Because children are terrifying, as we just described to you. And then they say there's also like, I don't know why I was saying a G. Spirits. There's also spirits who passed like an industrial accident, so I'm assuming like having to do with the railroads,
right?
And then of course, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, many shadow figures can be seen along the way, which is where I thought it was called Zombie Road. One of the famous ghost stories that's like actual like story is that there is a woman who had been hit by a train. And it is believed that this woman is Mrs. Della Hamilton McCullough. McCullough? McCullough?
Yeah, something like that.
Anyways, Della McAuliffe was the wife of a local judge who was tragically hit by a train and died in 1876. There is apparently no record of anyone else dying in the area that way, and so it's kind of believed that she's the ghost.
Right.
But apparently also that area was known for the trails derailing.
Oh, fun.
And so it's possible other people died in that way and we just don't know about it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Did the trains derail because of the ghost, or are there ghosts because the train kept derailing?
Right.
Who knows? Also, apparently, in the 1940s, the area had a resort community that ultimately ended up abandoned, but now, like, there's ruins of the houses that were on the property for the resort. And so it kind of adds to the creepy vibe of it. And there is another famous spirit around these ruins who is just like an old woman who yells at passerbys.
I'm going to be
And
that
when-
ghost.
Get off my lawn! and whenever people to go investigate, like, who yelled at them, there's nobody there.
That's so creepy.
Yeah, I hate it. So if you're in the area of Wildwood, Missouri, and you want to go check it out, you might feel like you're being watched, hear disembodied footsteps, and see one of these many apparitions, including packs of children. And
Oh, do you remember the thing from like back in the day, like Unsolved Mysteries back in the day, where they would show like cars on railroad tracks and they'd put powder on the back of the trunk and
I
then
think every
stop
town
their
has a story
car
like that.
and then like they would push the car, the ghost children would push the car over and there would be handprints in the baby powder. Maybe, I mean, don't play with railroad tracks, but maybe just like that could be why there's so many spirit ghosts. Like maybe a train derailed and a bunch of children
Killed a bunch of kids
died,
or something.
and
Yeah.
now that they're trying to protect people from the train tracks.
Maybe. Or maybe it's a bunch of kids going out there playing in like the old rundown houses and shit. And
Yeah, no
dying.
shit.
Or
Ugh.
maybe the zombie killer got them all.
Maybe. Dun dun dun.
But if you do go check out the area, be aware that Zombie Road is closed to the public half an hour after sunset until half an hour before sunrise, and they're like really big on like do not trespass, do not go there at night. So we do not condone trespassing.
Yeah, don't go get yourself arrested.
Yeah. So maybe you can go see the creepy shit in sunlight.
Yeah, or set up like trail cams. I don't know if that's allowed, but like that's a way that you could.
Trail cams. I
I don't
know.
either. You could Google it. I'm sure people, if you're interested in trying it out.
I do wonder. I mean, it's common for parks, and this is now a biking and hiking trail, so I guess you could probably consider it a park. It's common for parks to be closed after dark.
Oh yeah,
But it does make me wonder: is it actually closed after dark because like shit's crazy?
probably like teenagers and vandalism and
Yeah,
sex and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, you can't go do that. The zombie killer will get you.
Absolutely.
But why zombie? I don't. That's what I don't get. It's like
I don't get it
man
either.
Who lives in a shack in the woods? Where did zombie come into it?
I don't know.
If anybody's from the area of Missouri,
and you know why it's called the Zombie Road,
other than the fact that the story was called Zombie,
right? I mean, I'm really just glad that actual zombies don't exist. Just throwing that out there. Just saying.
I'm just shaking my head. Like I things like that like stress me out so bad because it's like, what would you do?
Right. I would die. No, I would. I know what my zombie apocalypse plan is. I would go to a liquor store and buy. Well, I say buy, or if there was no one there to buy from, take all my favorite things.
Capitalism's down the drain.
And just drink myself into oblivion and when I'm passed out drunk, then the zombies could eat me. They could eat me.
It makes me think of the book trilogy I read years ago, the Blood trilogy by what's his name, Jason Bovberg, I think. I'll have to Google that. But you think it's a zombie apocalypse story, and it turns out like I'm not going to spoil it. It's not zombies.
There's a twist.
You think it is,
yeah,
and like it follows like this teenage girl and like her stepmom becomes one of it, and like I just think about that and like how she had to like kill her stepmom.
Oh my gosh.
And then of course my brain always goes to my own story of the zombie apocalypse, From a Gun to the Mountains. That's in Paranormal-ish, and I get really depressed when I think about that because I remember the time that I had to kill my own wife.
Right?
She was turning into a zombie.
That's a really good short, by the way. Anybody who hasn't read Paranormal should check it out.
It's probably one of my top stories, to be honest. And I still cry when I read it.
Yeah.
But
it's sad.
That's Zombie Road in
Nice.
Wildwood, Missouri.
Just before I get into my my portion of the episode, I want to give a quick disclaimer. While Pamela Hupp is in prison currently, she is not in prison currently for the murder that I will be speaking about, which heavily would make you think she would be. There is an ongoing investigation about that. So anything that is said that sounds like an opinion, I will try to make my best to say this is my opinion or this is my thoughts on it or I highly suspect. However, beyond that, everything else is just from the notes, and my opinion is my own, just like you're going to form your own opinion. And I'll get into that in just a minute. So buckle up. It's a bumpy ride. Well, let me tell you about Miss Pamela Marie Newman. She was born on October 10th of 1958. She grew up in Delwood, Missouri, a St. Louis suburb, and she attended Riverview Gardens High School. She eventually became Pamela Hupp, Hupp, not Huff, which is very confusing. But anyways,
I said Huff earlier.
Yeah. Oh, it might be my accent, which doesn't help anybody. But Pamela Hupp, she held several jobs in the life insurance industry. Okay. On 2 occasions, she was fired, however, for forging some signatures. That's probably not a good sign. So in 2001, she and her husband settled in O'Fallon, where she worked as an administrator for a state farm. And she also flipped houses on the side, her and her husband. Okay. And in 2010, she had stopped working and was claiming disability benefits for leg, neck, and back pain. Yeah. Now, also, right after this disability claim, in 2011, Pamela and Betsy Faria, a friend terminally ill with cancer, reportedly collected money for a family also impacted by cancer. It says Fox News found several years later that the family did not know about the collection, and that seems about right for Pamela. Right. It says Lincoln County authorities in 2014 presented this information, but it was not investigated any further. The collecting and the fraudulency of that.
This is why people have such a hard time collecting or donating to real causes.
Yeah.
So many scammers.
Absolutely. There was no evidence to suggest Ferreira knew about the fundraiser. The questionable stuff that was going on, she had no idea. She was friends with Pamela, and her friends recall that she said she was excited to be helping a struggling family, even though she herself was dying.
Oh, that's so horrible. So
right?
She scammed a lot of money and scammed her own friend.
Oh, yeah. Oh, girl, just buckle up. One of them, Kathleen Meyer, said, quote, "This was going to be a legacy for her, to leave something like this behind in her memory," end quote. So Betsy wanted to do something kind and generous to help some other family in need because she could no longer help herself cure cancer. So now Elizabeth Betsy, as she's more popularly known, was Meyer and then Ferreira, was a coworker of Hupp's at the state farm that she worked at. Now, she lived in Troy, Missouri with her husband, Russ Scott Ferreira, and they had two daughters, and she had two daughters from a previous relationship. In 2010, she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. In 2011, she learned that the cancer had metastasized to her liver, and she was terminal.
Man, that's awful.
It is, and it's heartbreaking because she had two children and a husband, and I'm sure, as a story I watched on Hulu is probably loosely based on the facts. It seemed like she was a really loving person.
Right, yeah.
So, and just hearing the quote that she wanted to leave behind a legacy that she was helpful to other people shows that she had a kind and generous heart. So, on December 22nd, days before her death, unbeknownst to her family, Ferreira changed the sole beneficiary of her $150,000 life insurance, equivalent in 2021 to $181,000 at State Farm, was where her life insurance was held, from her husband, Russ,
to Pam.
To Pam.
Okay, but did she change it or did Pam forge some signatures?
That's where the real question lies, because in the show, they don't tell you. But knowing that Pam had forged signatures and been fired makes you question it. Now, it originally said Ferreira had asked her to give the money to her daughters when they were older. She trusted this woman. She asked her to take care of her children. Later, she said Ferreira had wanted her to keep the money for herself. Her story changes a lot. Betsy Ferreira's daughters, yep, they can't. If you're lying, you can't keep it straight. Betsy Ferreira's daughters launched a legal challenge against Hupp and her husband to attempt to reclaim the money from the life insurance policy in 2014, which was dismissed in 2016. So they didn't get the money back. They lost all that money. It's fucked up. Russ launched his own legal challenge against State Farm in 2016. Hupp admitted that she had lied about what she intended to do with the life insurance proceedings. Persecutors later speculated that Ferreira's husband had been angered by her actions to give the money to her friend as opposed to him on the time of her death, and that gave him a motive to kill her.
What?
Oh yeah, girl. It's like I said, it's a nuts case. Russ remained the beneficiary on a separate $100,000 equivalent to $120,000 in 2021 policy. 5 days later, on December 27th of 2011, Ferreira underwent chemotherapy, and then she went to visit her mother at her mother's home, after which she was driven home by, guess who? Pam Hupp. Yep, the last confirmed person to see her alive. Ferreira had originally been scheduled to be driven home by her husband, Russ, or stay with her mother until Hupp unexpectedly just drove to her mother's house and insisted on driving her home. Hupp claimed that...
normal.
Yeah, totally normal. Like, I'm going to tell you what you're doing, and you're just going to do it. And I'm guaranteeing that her friend felt so uncomfortable that she just fucking went along with it. But that's me speculating. Hupp claimed that she had dropped Ferreira off approximately at 7 p.m. And at approximately 7:21, a call to Ferreira from one of her daughters went unanswered. Russ Ferreira spent an evening at his friend Michael Corbin's home watching films from 6 p.m. until 9 p.m. Then he drove to an Arby's in Lake St. Louis before returning home. At 9:40, Russ called 911 saying that he had returned home to find his wife had killed herself.
Oh, God.
But here's the thing. He was panicked. He was grief-stricken. Her wrists were cut. But this is the thing. Betsy had been stabbed over 55 times with cuts to her wrists, like it cut to the bone. And with a serrated kitchen knife lodged in her neck.
My God.
A second knife was found under a pillow on the couch she was lying on. The first responders arrived within 10 minutes and concluded that she had been dead for at least an hour, maybe longer. And Ferreira's time of death was later reported between 7:20 and 9:41 p.m.
Man.
Russ was arrested the day after his wife's death. His initial assertion that Betsy had killed herself was considered ludicrous, and that's in quotes, by first responders who saw the body. I'm going to pause right here to say, if I walked in and saw someone with their wrist cut to the bone and blood everywhere,
with no sign of like a break-in, nothing like that, yeah,
I don't know what I would think.
exactly.
I don't know how I would respond.
And I feel like it's perfectly normal for him to only see that and be like, she killed herself.
And maybe the knife wasn't visible because of her hair, or who fucking knows?
Where he was standing, who knows? Yeah.
Right. Okay, so they said it was ludicrous, and the police search of the house unearthed blood-stained pair of slippers in his closet.
Of course.
Now, Russ allegedly had a volatile emotional state and was regarded as suspicious by police, and he failed a polygraph test. When interviewed by the police, Hupp claimed that Russ had a violent temper and that he was a heavy drinker, that he had threatened Betsy, who had been considering leaving him, and at Hupp's behest, police searched Betsy's laptop and found a document which she expressed fears that her husband would kill her.
Convenient.
Now we're at January 4th of 2012. The day after Betsy's funeral, Russ was charged with first-degree murder and armed criminal actions. Unable to make the $250,000 bail, he was held in the county jail until his trial began on November 18th of 2013. So, holy shit, that's a long time.
Yeah, it is.
During Russ Ferreira's trial, his defense attorney, Joe Schwartz, argued that the testimonies of the 4 friends he had visited, cell phone record evidence that he presented, and at his friend's house 20 miles away from the murder scene, and evidence of him making purchases from different stores all over the course of the evening, demonstrating that the timeline did not allow for him to commit the murder. And there were no traces of blood on his clothes. The prosecuting attorney, Leah Askey, countered that Russ's Ferreira's friends were providing a false alibi and had co-conspired with him to help him commit this murder.
Or, hear me out, the person who right before her death became the beneficiary.
Right.
That's like textbook.
Oh, I know. Including holding onto his cell phone, she alleged, and posing as him to buy food at Arby's to falsify his whereabouts as the ultimate role-playing game, because they played role-playing games. So of course it has to be something
like
stupid.
Dungeons and Dragons.
You're a fucking murderer. Yeah,
What
exactly.
The fuck?
The trial judge, Chris Manamere, I'm sorry if I butchered that, refused to allow Schwartz to present evidence implicating Hupp as an alternative suspect, including cell phone records showing that she had been in the vicinity of the Ferreira house for up to 30 minutes after the time she claimed that she had dropped off Betsy. He made a point that Hupp was a sole beneficiary on the life insurance policy shortly before the death. In a secret hearing during the trial, Hupp claimed that she had put $100,000 of the life insurance money into a trust for Ferreira's daughters. That sounds sweet. She's not.
Sounds fake.
Yeah, it does sound fake. Now, in July of 2014, in a civil deposition, she admitted that she had not done that. She had never put the money in a trust.
I'll go figure.
On November 21st of 2013, Russ Ferreira was convicted of both counts. A month later, he was sentenced to life plus 30 years imprisonment without the possibility of parole and sent to the Jefferson City Correction Center. Although a central premise to the case was that his 4 friends had been complicit in the murder, no charge was ever brought against them.
Because they knew it was fucking fake.
Exactly. They were not aware they had been implicated by Askey in her closing arguments until they were informed via the media.
Damn.
The sentencing was welcomed by Betsy's family. In an interview given following his sentencing, her sister Julia Sweeney made claims unheard during the trial that Russ had been angered by the removal of his name and a separate insurance policy he had on occasion, held a pillow to Ferreira's face and said, "This is what it'll feel like to die." That's a direct quote. In response to the claims, Schwartz noted that the pillow story had originally been told by Pamela Hupp.
I was about to say, that seems just out of the blue.
Ferreira's daughters issued an apology to Russ Ferreira in July of 2021. Now, he had a retrial and an acquittal, so this is about that. And an initial motion for a new trial was rejected by the first judge in December of 2013. In January of 2014, Fox 2 KTVI partnered with St. Louis Post-Dispatch to review the case. The next month, the newspapers reported that Hupp had kept the $150,000 rather than put it into a trust for Ferreira's daughters. She had also contradicted herself during police interviews, such as initially claiming that she had not entered the Ferreira's home after driving Betsy home. But later, she revised that, and she did that twice. She changed her story 3 times about being in the house or not being in the house. The 911 operator who had taken Russ's phone call had believed he had been genuinely hysterical. And the article alleged that Askey, the persecutor, had been in a relationship with Mike Lang, then captain of investigations for the sheriff's office, and was one of the investigating officers in Betsy's murder case, as well as a prosecution's witness. So that's dirty as hell.
That's conflict of interest.
Yeah. 2 members of the jury in Russ's trial told the media that this information had been withheld.
Of course it was.
Now, Schwartz appealed the conviction, and in February of 2015, the Missouri Court of Appeals sent the case back to the 45th Circuit Court for a hearing on a retrial. After Minamere recused herself, the original judge, from the case, in June 22, Circuit Court Judge Steve Omner granted a motion for a new bench trial based on the evidence that had emerged, with Ferreira released on bond pending the trial. During this retrial, Schwartz was allowed to introduce new evidence implicating Huff as the perpetrator. CSI agent Amy Buettner, who had examined the crime scene, testified that she believed the slippers found in Russ's closet had not gotten bloodied by stepping in blood. During the trial, officers disclosed that Hupp, who was not called to testify, had claimed in interviews conducted in June that she and Betsy had been in a sexual relationship. They weren't just friends. Now they were in a sexual relationship. And Hupp told police that she, quote, remembered seeing Russ in another man in a car, and it was parked on the side street of the Ferreira home as she drove Betsy home. So now her story's changed again. She's just made it all up. So she drove her home, saw him on the side street with some strange man in the car. On November 7th, Ferreira's conviction was overturned, and he was released from prison after serving almost 4 years.
Man.
An innocent man served 4 years in prison. In 2016, Joe Schwartz filed a bar complaint against Askey. It was eventually dismissed by the Chief Officer of Disciplinary Counsel. In 2016, Russ Ferreira filed a civil rights lawsuits against Askey and the 3 deputy sheriffs on the basis that they had fabricated evidence and ignored evidence and failed to investigate other suspects. So all this happened, but meanwhile, the news station Fox 2 KTVI found other problematic things involving the judge from the original case. The following month, Askey and the sheriff's office issued a press release stating that they were cooperating with the U.S. Attorney for Eastern District of Missouri, in a review of the entire case. Now, in 2017, Askey asked Lincoln County Commissioner to conduct an independent investigation into her conduct. The investigation found no wrongdoing. Of course not. In 2017, the original judge was suspended by the Supreme Court of Missouri for misconduct unrelated to the Ferreira case. So she got in trouble for something, but if one case gets you completely thrown out, I'm assuming there was more than that to go into it, but that's speculation. In 2018, Minimere and Askey, now Leah Womack Cheney, were voted out of office, a result attributed to the mishandling of the murder case and the trial. The decision to not investigate Hupp had been widely criticized. Yeah, and a former employee said that of the prosecutor's office said, quote, there were several of us that kept thinking, why are we not pursuing Pam Hupp? They just were locked down on Russ, end quote. In 2021, Leah Womack Cheney, which was Askey, noted that she had believed Hupp would be physically incapable of inflicting the wounds found on Betsy Faria body. In September of 2019, federal district judge John Andrew Ross dismissed Ferreira's suit against Leah Womack Cheney on the basis that it was prosecutorial immunity. So basically she had immunity because she was the prosecutor. That makes me angry. In 2018, attorneys acting for Russ Ferreira deposed Hupp as part of Ferreira's lawsuit against Lincoln County. She declined to answer 92 questions related to the killing of his wife. In response to the refusal, Ferreira's attorney sought a court order to force a response. And in 2020, Ferreira received a settlement worth over $2 million. Now we're at the charging of Pam Hupp. In 2019, after Hupp entered a Alfred guilty plea to the murder of Louis Gumpenberger, Lincoln County prosecuting attorney Mike Wood announced that he would be reopening the Betsy Faria homicide investigation. In October of 2019, Wood requested the case to be reviewed by the Major Case Squad of Greater St. Louis. In August of 2020, the Lincoln County Sheriff Rick Harrell said that Betsy Faria's case had inspired him to run for the job. And in February of 21, Wood stated that the COVID-19 pandemic had slowed the investigation, but that he expected significant announcements in the summer or fall. On July 8th of 21, Hupp was interviewed in connection with the murder of Betsy Faria for the first time. That's fucking sad that it took so long.
Yeah.
On July 12th of 21, Hupp was charged with the first-degree murder of Betsy Faria with armed criminal action. The court documents filed by Wood asserted that Hupp murdered Ferreira for financial gain, and Wood stated that he would seek the death penalty for Hupp due to the heinousness and depravity of the crime. Persecutors alleged that Hupp reportedly stabbed Ferreira while she was sleeping on her sofa from being weakened from the chemotherapy she received earlier that day. Then Ferreira her socks were removed and used them to spread blood around the house to give the impression of a domestic violence situation before replacing them on Ferreira's feet. The court documents noted the following points. Hupp had been named the sole beneficiary of the life insurance policy held by Ferreira days before the murder. Following Ferreira's death, she did not give any of the money from this policy to Betsy's daughters like she was supposed to do. Hupp insisted upon driving Ferreira home from chemotherapy despite the fact that she already had transportation and she could have stayed at her mom's house, and Hupp claiming to not be familiar with the Troy area. The position of Ferreira's body suggested that she was murdered by someone she trusted, and Hupp texted home to Ferreira's phone at 7:20 despite cell phone records showing that Hupp's cell phone was still in the vicinity of the Ferreira home at the time. Wood also stated that they would be investigating potential prosecutorial misconduct in the original Ferreira murder investigation, describing the initial investigation as mishandled from the beginning. And I would agree. And driven by a confirmation bias against Russ Ferreira, Wood suggested that the actions by investigators and prosecutors concerned could constitute as gross negligence or calculated criminal behavior. Wood suggested that the time of Russ Ferreira's second trial, Lincoln County prosecutors were acting to protect their own civil liability rather than the ends of justice. Wood further noted that a destruction order had been made in 2015 at the time of Russ Ferreira's acquittal, but never acted on. Thank God.
Wow.
Had it been acted on, and the order would have been resulted in physical evidence being destroyed for the entire case. In July of 21, interview with Betsy Farria's daughter stated that when they had asked about the possibility of Hupp having murdered their mother, they were told she physically couldn't do that. In response to Wood gave the announcement, Leah Womack Cheney, which was then ASCII, gave the interview, said she denied misconduct and stated that she never had to send a destruction order. In July of 21, Hupp entered a not guilty plea. On September 8th of 21, the armed criminal action charge against Hupp was dismissed. A preliminary hearing was scheduled for February of 2022, but was delayed indefinitely after Hupp's public defender died of a heart attack. Now, if that's not all crazy enough, Shirley Mae Newman, oh, you mean Pamela's mother. Yeah, Pamela's mother, a widow since 2000, was living alone on a third-floor apartment in Lakeview Park Independent Senior Living Community in Fenton, suffering from dementia and arthritis. She spent the night of October 29th with Pamela following a hospital visit. After approximately 5 p.m. on October 30th of 2013, Pamela dropped her mother off at her apartment, instructing the staff not to expect her down for dinner that evening or breakfast the following day. A housekeeper found exactly. A housekeeper found her mother dead beneath the balcony of her home at 2:30 p.m. the next day. The aluminum balcony railing was broken. Following a police investigation, Assistant Medical Examiner Raj Najuri, sorry about that, concluded that she had died from a blunt trauma to the chest resulting from an accidental fall. The autopsy found that she had 84 mcgs of sedative zolpidem in her blood, zolpidem, however you say that, in her blood, over 8 times the expected concentration for someone having taken a normal dose. Yeah. The next thing was that the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office received an anonymous note suggesting that Pamela, the last person known to have been with her mother alive, had murdered her mother for the life insurance money. Hupp and her siblings each received approximately $120,000 of investments held by Newman, as well as sharing a $10,000 life insurance payout. Earlier that year, prior to her mother's death, Hupp had been videotaped saying, quote, "My mom's worth $500,000. I get that when she dies. If I really wanted more money, there was an easier way than trying to combat someone that's physically stronger than me," end quote. The police reopened their investigation, but after interviewing the housekeeper who had found Newman's body and Newman's son, Michael, both of whom said that Newman was unsteady, again concluded that her death was an accident, and they didn't interview Hupp.
What the fuck?
Right? This woman is like the luckiest criminal I've ever seen. After Hupp was charged with the 2016 murder of Louis Gumpenberger, sorry if I say that wrong. I really do mean to say it right. The St. Louis County Police Department reopened the investigations. Michael Newman retained that he believed his mother's death was an accident. Detective Matthew Levy attempted to get a subpoena for the location of Hupp's cell phone at the time of her mother's death, but was unsuccessful. Levy also attempted to organize forensic testing on the balcony railing, the Missouri University of Science and Technology, but the Lakeview Independent Senior Living community refused to provide a railing for testing. A retired homicide detective suggested to Fox 2 KTVI that one of the vertical bars appeared to have been kicked out after interviewing Hupp in connection with Newman's death. Fox 2 reporter Chris Hayes received an anonymous letter saying that, "Dear sirs, I think it's getting a little silly that you keep accusing someone of killing their parent when it's not true.
It's just a little silly.
It's just a little silly. Who the fuck talks like that?
It's a little silly. You're saying that I killed my mom.
Right.
What? It's like if you didn't kill her, silly is not the right word.
Now, in 2017, Mary Casey, chief medical examiner for St. Louis County, charged the manner of Newman's death from accident to undetermined. The case stated, since Newman's death, many things have happened to involve her daughter, and also the investigation, including one in Lincoln County and one in St. Charles, became pertinent information. I was no longer willing to say it could be an accident. The investigation into Newman's death was not reopened. Now, Louis Gumpenberger, I'm just going to call him Louis because I can't say his last name properly, and I feel really shitty about that. Louis was a resident of Union, Missouri. He had mental and physical disabilities after a car crash in 2005. Shortly after noon on August 16th of 2016, Louis died after Hupp shot him 5 times in the hallway of her home. Yeah. Of 1260 Little Brave Drive in O'Fallon, Missouri. $900 was found on his body, along with a note bearing instructions to kidnap Hupp, to get Russ's money from Hupp at the bank, and to kill Hupp. To take Hupp back, it said, and to take Hupp back to the house and get rid of her. Make it look like Russ's wife's. Right? So kill her the same way that
she killed her friend. God.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure the knife sticking out of her neck. In return for a reward of $10,000, as Hupp had placed 2 calls to 911 shortly before the shooting and reported a burglary in progress. The audio of the incident was recorded. Immediately after the shooting, Hupp voluntarily went to the O'Fallon Police Department. Her first words on record was, "Is this going to be filmed? Because I always wanted to appear on the news with Chris Hayes." She went on to say she blamed Hayes reporting for attracting threatening people. So it's the news person's fault that she murdered someone.
Listen, the media has a lot of issues in the way they report things, but this ain't it.
No. Hupp claimed that Louis, armed with a knife, had jumped out of a car driven by another person into her driveway, accosted her while she sat in her SUV in her garage, and demanded that she drive him to the bank to retrieve Russ's money. Pamela claimed that she had knocked the knife out of his hands with a karate chop. It's in direct quotes. Karate chop. And fled into the house. But she's disabled. She can't do anything, right? So she ran. She fled into her house and can karate chop an attacker. Then she shot Louis in self-defense with a Ruger LCR she kept on her nightstand. So she went all the way up the damn stairs. After he pursued her. So fucked up. The St. Charles County prosecutors and the O'Fallon police chief theorized that Hupp had lured him to her home by presenting herself as Kathy, a producer for the television program Dateline NBC, and offering to pay him to reenact a 911 call, then shot him in order to implicate Russ Ferreira in attempted murder on her life and taking the heat off of her by planting the knife and the note and the money on his body. Louis was believed to have been selected at random. Several pieces of evidence were implicated. Cell phone records show that Hupp had been near Louis's neighborhood less than an hour before the shooting, contradicting her claim that they had never met before.
Wow.
On August 10th of 2016, a police report had been filed with the St. Charles County Police saying that a woman matching Hupp's description had approached O'Fallon resident Carol Alford, also known as Carol McAfee, posing as a Dateline NBC producer, offering her $1,000 to reenact a 911 call. Security camera footage showed that woman in question had been driving Hupp's car. A second witness, Brent Carlton, informed police that Hupp had approached him with a similar proposition.
What the fuck?
Right. Police investigators found 9 $100 bills in his pocket, but the 10th bill was found on Hupp's dresser, and it has a sequential serial number to 4 of the 9 bills. So she is an idiot. She kept, because he was mentally disabled, she said, I'll give you this much money, but she, I guess, didn't think he could fucking count. So she kept one of the hundreds.
Or if it was just sitting there, like maybe she like didn't grab it in time or something.
Something.
We can assume maybe she's put it on the body after.
Maybe, but I would think to lure someone into your car, like they showed it in the show, you would have to show them the money first.
Oh, maybe.
But that's me speculating.
Either way.
Oh, and it gets so much better. Investigators also suggested that the knife had been purchased at a Dollar Tree in O'Fallon, alongside several other items found in Hupp's house. The paper on which the note found on Louis's body had been written was also have been put there by Hupp. The knife found in Hupp's car that was wedged between the passenger seat and the center console. They matched the knives in her kitchen and were similarly stored between the stove and the counter.
What the fuck?
And carpet swatches found by police appear to have been positioned to protect a rug in her home from Louis's blood. So she had like spare carpet just laying on top of her actual nice things. Yeah. Police investigators were skeptical that Louis would have been capable of carrying out the acts that Hupp had suggested, given his mental and physical disabilities. So she entered a plea of guilty and was charged with first-degree murder and armed criminal action. Upon being arrested, she asked to visit the bathroom, where she took a ballpoint pen, trigger warning, and stabbed herself repeatedly in the neck and in the wrist in an apparent suicide attempt. Sorry, that's before she pled guilty. Sorry, but yeah, so she tried to kill herself with a ballpoint pen.
But in the same locations that her friend had been stabbed in.
Yeah. The St. Charles County Assistant Prosecutor Phil we're just going to call him Phil because I can't say his last name, described the acts as a conscious of guilt. Bail for Hupp was set to $2 million on December 16th. A grand jury indicated Hupp on the charges. Hupp appeared in front of the court on January 31st of 2017, pled not guilty in March of 2017. Prosecutors stated that they would seek the death penalty due to the apparent choices of Louis as the victim. Or May of 2018, 11th Circuit County John Cunningham ruled that prosecutors could not present evidence relating to the death of Shirley Neumann. The following month, Cunningham ruled that prosecutors could present evidence relating to the killing of Betsy Faria. In August of 2018, Hupp's trial date was set for June of 2019. Instead of contesting the charges against her, Hupp entered an Alford guilty plea, waiving her right to a grand jury trial. As condition of her guilty plea, Hupp did not face the death penalty. Smart bitch. She was sentenced to life without parole. In August 2019, she was serving a sentence at the, I'm going to say this wrong, Chilliwack Correctional Center. In a phone call to her then husband, Hupp claimed that she had pled guilty so that her family would not have to witness an ugly trial. In October of 2019, Louis's mother, Margaret Birch, filed a lawsuit for wrongful death, fraud, and misrepresentation against the incarceration of Hupp. In 2020, Birch was awarded a judgment of $3 million. Birch's attorney, Gary Berger, subsequently filed to garnish Hupp's prison trust account, into which her $1,200 COVID-19 CARES Act relief stimulus was paid. As of February 2022, the family had not received any significant money from Hupp. In September of 2020, Hupp's husband filed for divorce, describing their marriage as irreparably. Say that word.
Irreparably. What? What are we saying?
Their marriage was completely fucked. That's what it was.
I said it perfectly the first time.
You did, and I can't say it. Leave all this in because it's funny. But it's irreparably broken.
Irreparably.
Yes. There we go.
Right?
By March of 22, the couple was divorced. And in September 2020, Hupp filed a motion to vacate her conviction, claiming she was persuaded to take a plea, and it was denied the following March. Thank God. Now, Pamela Hupp is now serving life in prison with no chance of parole for the murder of Louis Gumpenberger, and it's not the end of the story. It's certainly not the end of the search for the truth. They are doing everything they should have done 10 years ago, Russ Ferreira said. Last July, Lincoln County prosecutor Mike Wood charged Pam Hupp with first-degree murder for the 2011 stabbing death of Betsy Faria. Quote, "We will be seeking the death penalty in this case," Wood said at that time. Prosecutors also opened a police corruption investigation, adding, quote, "No one here is above the law," end quote. And that, my friends, is the death of Betsy Faria, Louis Gumpenberger, and Pamela's mother, on top of the horrible person that Pamela Hupp is. And I hope you hear this in prison. Hi, Pamela.
Well, she seems to be a little bit full of herself, so I'm sure she searches her name. But it's so infuriating because, yes, statistically speaking, in most any sort of violent cases, the spouse.
But it's also somebody close to you in other cases.
Yeah, I was going to say, but there were so many obvious red flags. The transportation, the sudden change of life insurance, like all of these things, especially the sudden change of life insurance where the beneficiary is somebody who works in the insurance industry with a history of fraud. And they just, she couldn't have done it. She's a woman.
But I love how her story changed from, I never went into her house. I may have went into her house. I only went into her house for a brief moment. And I don't know. We were in a sexual relationship, so nobody could know about it. Like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck?
And I just,
I'm sorry, but if you were to be murdered,
but like,
I wouldn't, and I was being looked at, I wouldn't be like, and let's assume I did it. I would not be saying we had a sexual relationship to cover it up, and like that's why your husband murdered you is because he was like jealous with rage. Like, what the fuck? That's crazy.
Right. Yeah. And like,
that's such a stretch
because she was already dying. She wanted to help another family and like got dragged into that scam without even knowing. And then like her own friends
and her poor children and her poor fucking husband.
Yeah.
But those poor children who
he had to find her like that. And then get blamed for it. It goes back. It does. But like,
think of it this way: those poor kids probably had to live with their grandma because their dad was in jail and their mom was dead. And this older lady is probably on a fixed income, and she's got to support 2 kids and herself. And
because
then
they never got the life insurance
money. Like, how fucking horribly hard is that? Well, absolutely. Thank you, Mystery Vase, for picking Missouri for us because it was a wild ride.
Yeah, that was really interesting. Oh, I think we forgot to mention at the start, we plan to do this once a month. Not like every episode's not going to be the fucked and
but we're just going to do
whatever we said. I can't remember now.
Fucked up and frightful. But we're going to do it once a month. I think it'll be fun to do an episode once a month that's dedicated to a place that fate decides. I think it'll be interesting.
And don't forget to send in your submissions if you have just a general place like, hey, cover my hometown. Or if you're like, hey, my hometown had this horrific or haunted thing happen. Send that in and we'll add it to the vase.
And if you have any true crime or paranormal stories that you want to share with us anonymously, we can do that too. We will read your emails anonymously. Send it from a fake email address. Nobody will know. I wouldn't know.
Or just put in the email, hey, don't use my name. I won't get fired.
Yeah, we won't tell your secrets. We'll just tell the world anonymously what you told us.
Oh, but we should also mention our email address is GABB podcast.
And that'll be in the show notes and on Linktree and all the things, like always.
As per usual.
Yeah, I had a great time this episode. I really did. I didn't
in Missouri.
I didn't enjoy the story I covered because it's horribly sad.
It's so horrible because 2 other people could still be alive if they had just even took a second to look into.
Her husband was going to go to like death row. Like, you know, he could have died too. Like, it's all fucked. It's all fucked. And I'm glad that she's in prison now. Even though she took the bitch's way out and didn't go against the jury so she could get life in prison. But that's okay because they're charging her with Betsy's death. So we'll see how that plays out. And when we have an update on that, we will let you know. But until then, check out the Hulu show, The Thing About Pam. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on it because I thought it was an excellent representation of the case, although nothing should be done about her story. Pamela, it shouldn't be focused on Pam. It should have been focused on
it should be focused on her victims, especially Betsy.
But they don't make her likable, and I like that. They don't try to, like in that movie Monster, make the character sympathetic. They don't do that, and that's a good thing because nobody should feel sympathy for murderers. But that's just my 2 takes on it. But until next time, listeners, stay spooky. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Ghosts in the Attics, Bodies in the Basement, a Fearscape Media podcast. Music by Stephen Timperley. Artwork by Laura Ramsey. Find us online at fearscapemedia.com/GABB podcast or on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at GABB podcast or email us gabbpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you.